Meghan Markle has unfairly got a reputation for being a bit of a diva, but royal insiders say she's only ever made one demand. Don't leave her alone with Prince Andrew.
Say Miss Meghan Markle is on the American program Suits.
Yes, Wednesdays, 8 p.m, USA Network.
The only difference between that show and this is people watch this one.
If you had lunch with Meghan Markle, you'd be stunned at how dumb she was. Not because she's black, because I wouldn't think she was black if I looked at her, because she's an actress who was on the show.
For someone who constantly talks about wanting privacy, Meghan Markle always seems to be front and center. Every time things quiet down, another headline pops up, another interview drops, another statement makes waves. The cameras never really stop, and neither does the narrative. Critics say she has reshaped her story more than once, trimming away details that don't fit and highlighting the parts that paint her in the best light. Over time, that pattern has left a lot of people questioning what's real and what's carefully edited for the spotlight. There's nothing wrong with calling yourself a feminist. That word isn't controversial on its own. But when comedian Jimmy Carr went after her public image, he didn't hold back. He openly labeled her the fakest feminist alive, and that line spread fast. For some viewers, it hit hard because it reflected a growing frustration. They're tired of hearing about my truth, my pain, and my struggle, without ever seeing accountability when timelines don't match or details shift. The criticism isn't about standing up for women, it's about whether the messaging lines up with the actions. And that was only the beginning. Jimmy Carr didn't just poke fun at Harry and Meghan's public persona. He took a sharp comedic swing at the entire royal brand they've tried to build outside the palace. In his routine, he broke down their image piece by piece, questioning the gap between what they say and how they operate. The jokes were brutal, and the audience reaction made it clear the humor landed. Whether you see it as fair commentary or harsh comedy, one thing is certain. When the spotlight turns critical instead of flattering, it stings.
Suits.
Authentically, organically want to share. I go back to the authenticity, right? It's what I love and it's what I want to share. I wanted to do what felt authentic, but also to be authentic.
You're a cold-eyed woman.
Harry and Meghan are leaving the palace to become financially independent. And you see, this is what happens when you bring the first black woman into the royal family. Yeah. She looked at Harry and she's like, "Nigga, you need to get a job. You need a job. You a grown-ass man. You can't still be living in your mama's house, Harry."
Prince Harry has said many times that he stepped away from royal duties to escape control. He described the palace as rigid, the press as overwhelming, and the expectations as constant. According to him, it was about freedom and mental space. But critics argue that the version of independence he found looks heavily produced. Instead of royal protocols, they see media deals, streaming specials, and carefully staged appearances. To them, it doesn't feel like escape. It feels like a different kind of structure, just dressed up as autonomy. Some commentators even joke that he didn't leave control behind, he just swapped settings. Instead of Buckingham Palace, it's a Montecito mansion with studio lights and brand strategy meetings. Instead of royal briefings, it's content planning and podcast launches. And what makes people roll their eyes the most is that he still talks constantly about the royal life he claimed he needed distance from. If the goal was peace, critics ask, why keep revisiting the same chapters again and again? At a certain point, public sympathy can wear thin. Harry often speaks about his struggles as if they are uniquely intense. And while many people respect his openness about mental health, others feel he frames his experience as singular. The reality is that hardship isn't exclusive to royalty. Everyone faces pressure, loss, and disappointment. When the tone starts to sound like only one person understands pain, that's when frustration creeps in. Kelly Osbourne shared her thoughts, but the bigger moment came from comedian Jimmy Carr.
Meghan Markle is somebody who obviously, at least for a period of time, was a close associate of Prince Andrew and hence is in a position to perhaps have seen what he did and perhaps, if not, to have seen what he did, to have heard people talk about it.
You're a cold-hearted woman, Sonia. Oh, fucking shit.
He didn't just tease the couple lightly, he built an entire routine around what he sees as contradictions. And then there's Meghan. She speaks passionately about wanting privacy, yet continues to appear in documentaries, podcasts, and high-profile events. For critics, that contrast is hard to ignore. Saying you dislike attention while staying highly visible creates confusion, and comedians thrive on that tension. Jimmy's jokes were dark and sharp, but they were aimed at what he views as performance versus reality. He painted their California life as a polished rebrand, a normal couple, living near Oprah, far from palace gates, yet still deeply connected to the royal narrative. The humor worked because it tapped into a broader perception that this story feels less like a retreat and more like a long-running reality series. The most dramatic comparison came when Jimmy referenced Wallis Simpson, the American divorcee linked to King Edward VIII's decision to step down in the 1930s. The parallel wasn't subtle. The idea was that history might be repeating itself in a modern, media-driven way. Some see that as exaggerated, others see it as symbolic. Either way, the point was clear. When love intersects with monarchy, the consequences echo loudly. Whether you agree with the criticism or not, the conversation keeps growing. Harry and Meghan remain polarizing figures, praised by supporters and questioned by skeptics. And as long as they continue telling their story, comedians and commentators will keep responding. Critics argue that with Meghan, love wasn't the final destination. It was the entry point. Once she became part of the royal family, the next moves seemed to unfold with almost perfect timing.
Go you, dying. I'm leaving you. It's a weekend at Bernie's situation. Sonia, what the fuck are you talking about? No, he's fine. He's signing the documents.
And he'll say M and you'll say H and your friends say M and it just is a thing.
It's a thing.
And do you both love it?
Yes, and I like nicknames a lot.
Are you fucking dumb? What could it be? A mystery for the age.
First came the exit from royal duties, then the high-profile Oprah interview. After that, major media deals followed one after another. A Spotify partnership, a Netflix agreement, big headlines, big numbers, big visibility. To skeptics, it didn't look random, it looked coordinated. And Jimmy Carr wasn't alone in pointing that out. Online commentators, media analysts, and even casual viewers started connecting the dots. They questioned whether stepping away from royal life was truly about privacy and peace, or whether it was the beginning of a new brand strategy. Over time, what was framed as an escape started to resemble a carefully structured rollout. Some critics go even further, claiming Meghan has a pattern of strained family relationships. They point to her own relatives and the very public disagreements that played out before the royal wedding. To them, that history adds another layer to the narrative. They argue that division seems to follow wherever the spotlight intensifies. Supporters see it differently, but the perception persists. At a certain point, the royal exit stopped looking like closure and started looking like a business pivot. Instead of walking away from the royal storyline, Harry and Meghan continued revisiting it through interviews, documentaries, and memoirs. The royal chapter wasn't closed. It was repackaged. And yes, it generated millions. For critics, that's the part that feels calculated. Jimmy Carr also joked about the financial side of things, referencing public funds and the broader debate around security costs and royal expenses. His tone was comedic, but the underlying theme was entitlement versus responsibility. The audience reaction online was immediate. Clips spread fast. Comment sections lit up.
To read those things. Like, I have real best friends, the same ones since I was 17.
Really?
You know, like, I'm a real mom. I choose to go and do school pickup and drop off, but I do that under a landscape that is created that forgets that I'm a real person. My kids will see those magazines, and we all know moms gossip.
She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim.
No, you're not a fucking victim. What are you talking about?
People weren't just laughing, they were debating. Another point Carr pushed was that Harry has rarely been fully independent. First, it was palace structure and guidance from his grandmother. After stepping away, critics claim he shifted into another tightly managed environment. The suggestion wasn't subtle. Harry seems more comfortable with someone steering the wheel. To those who see it that way, there's always been a figure shaping his decisions, whether institutional or personal. But here's the key distinction. Many observers insist the backlash isn't rooted in simple dislike. It's about consistency. When public figures present themselves as victims of systems they later monetize, questions naturally follow. Turning personal struggles into streaming specials, books, and interviews creates tension. Regular people deal with family conflicts, mental health challenges, and public criticism too, but without global platforms or high-level security teams. That contrast fuels frustration. Harry often speaks openly about hardship, and while vulnerability can be powerful, some feel he frames it as uniquely intense. That perception becomes amplified when paired with luxury lifestyles and multi-million-dollar contracts. Meanwhile, Meghan is frequently criticized for never conceding mistakes. According to detractors, every controversy becomes reframed. Every setback becomes another narrative arc. Jimmy's tone shifted noticeably when Prince William entered the conversation. The sarcasm faded, the energy changed. There was less mockery and more acknowledgement. William is often portrayed as steady.
Well, you never stood a fucking chance, did you?
Prince William or Prince Harry?
Prince William or Prince Harry? Well, the royal family, right, if you can imagine, they're like our Kardashians. And Prince Harry is very much our Kanye. He occasionally dresses as a Nazi, and he fucked up.
Focused and deeply committed to his role. Whether you agree with that assessment or not, the contrast in public perception is real. One brother is seen as disruptive and media-driven. The other is viewed as consistent and duty-oriented. And that contrast is exactly why the debate keeps growing. When Jimmy Carr shifted the spotlight fully onto Prince William, the temperature in the room changed instantly. The jokes slowed down. The sarcasm faded. Instead of punchlines, there was something closer to respect. That contrast said more than any insult ever could, because while Harry and Meghan often get framed as dramatic and unpredictable, William gets framed as steady, calm, focused, locked in on the mission. That difference matters. William doesn't spend his time rehashing old grievances. He doesn't sit down for interviews to unpack every emotional wound from 20 years ago. He shows up, does the job, and keeps it moving. Whether it's charity work, public service events, or stepping into larger responsibilities as the future king, he carries himself like someone who understands the weight of the crown. That's why even comedians who love pushing boundaries tend to tread carefully when his name comes up. The energy shifts because the perception shifts, and that perception is everything. While Harry talks about breaking free from the system, William seems to have mastered it. He didn't run from the pressure. He adapted to it. He didn't frame the monarchy as a trap. He treated it like a responsibility.
Harry's a fucking twat. I do. I think he's a fucking twat. He's a whining, whinging, complaining, woe is me, I'm the only one that's ever had mental problems. You've been handed the world and every major contract, you had podcasts, you have all of this, and you didn't deliver because
there's nothing to deliver.
Yeah, because you don't have it. And that's okay. And I think they do have a right to privacy, but that doesn't seem to me what they're looking for.
That's a huge contrast, and people notice. One brother walked away and built a media brand around his exit. The other stayed and doubled down on duty. Whether you agree with either path, the optics are night and day. Supporters of Harry say he chose happiness over hierarchy. Critics say he chose exposure over privacy. Meanwhile, William keeps his personal frustrations mostly out of public view. That silence creates an image of strength. It suggests discipline. It suggests long-term thinking. And in a world where everything is content, restraint becomes powerful. Jimmy's commentary tapped into that exact difference. He painted William as grounded, almost boring in the best possible way. No flashy rebrands, no dramatic tell-alls, just consistency. And in today's media environment, consistency feels rare. It feels stable, it feels trustworthy. Then there's the broader public reaction. When Harry and Meghan release a new project, the internet debates whether it's brave or opportunistic. When William appears at an event, the conversation is usually about the cause itself, not about hidden motives. That's the gap. One couple's moves spark controversy. The other's moves barely spark headlines beyond the event they're attending. It doesn't mean William is perfect. No public figure is. But perception drives reputation. And right now, the reputations couldn't look more different. Critics argue that Harry seems caught between identities. He's not fully royal anymore, but he's not fully detached either. He speaks against the institution while still leaning on the global recognition it gave him. That tension creates confusion. William, on the other hand, has a clear lane. Future king, public servant, family man. The brand is simple, and simple is strong.
Everybody's fucking life is hard.
Yeah,
you were the prince of a goddamn country who dressed up as a fucking Nazi, and now you're trying to come back as the Pope?
Curtsy, the thing she said about medieval times, her lunch with the Queen was like medieval times, which, as you know, is a Disney-type entertainment place for kids. And it's just so horribly disrespectful and just a wine fest. Cuddly, lovey, holding hands, going everywhere together. It's so disingenuous. It's like, come on.
Meghan Markle was there, who's a huge celebrity.
Yeah, you guys love suits.
Specifically, Prince Harry loves suits.
Yeah.
He used it like Tinder.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Did you ever run into Meghan Markle or anything like that you ever heard of? Because you were in New York quite a lot. But then you were until 2013, and Meghan Markle, I think, entered the scene with Soho House.
And let's be honest, part of the reason this dynamic hits so hard is because it's family. If this were just two random public figures, it wouldn't carry the same weight. But this is a royal split. Brothers raised in the same palace, shaped by the same tragedy, now walking completely different paths. One path is loud and media-driven. The other is quiet and institutional. Jimmy Carr didn't need to say it outright. The contrast did the talking. There's also the matter of public fatigue. Some viewers feel overwhelmed by the constant cycle of interviews and explanations coming from Harry's side. Every few months, another chapter opens, another grievance surfaces, another documentary revisits old wounds. Over time, even sympathetic audiences start to wonder when the story moves forward instead of backward. William's strategy seems to be the opposite. Less talk, more action, less commentary, more presence. That approach builds a different kind of authority. It doesn't rely on emotional narratives, it relies on consistency. And here's the deeper layer: leadership perception. Whether fair or not, many people subconsciously compare the two brothers as potential figureheads.
2012.
Yeah, so I went to Soho House a lot in London. It was a scene like Harry was always there, partying. He partied a lot. I saw so many people in the Soho, and it was dark. It was a lot of escorts were there, a lot of models were there. It was definitely a scene. Ron was there.
They made an appeal for their privacy, and they said, we just want everybody to leave them alone.
But we're going to do books and documentaries.
Well, no, they said an opera, and then weirdly nobody left them alone. So they thought, well, okay, we started a Spotify series. So Meghan did her Spotify series saying, leave me alone, will you stop looking at me? And people kept looking at her. So then they did a book.
You pop.
It's true, he did a book saying, leave me alone, stop giving me all this attention. And that didn't work either. So now they've got a Netflix documentary saying, leave us alone, stop giving us all this attention. It is likely, one assumes, to be an absolute goldmine for Netflix.
One appears composed under pressure, the other appears reactive. One looks long-term, the other looks immediate. That comparison shapes public opinion in powerful ways. When Jimmy Carr leaned into that respect for William, it wasn't about worship, it was about contrast. Comedy thrives on contrast. You highlight one extreme to expose another. And in this case, the extreme was the difference between quiet duty and public storytelling. The result? The audience reaction felt telling. Laughter when Harry and Meghan were discussed. Applause and nods when William came up. That split speaks volumes about how the public mood has shifted. At the end of the day, this isn't just about jokes. It's about image. It's about strategy. It's about how two brothers handled the same spotlight in completely different ways. One leaned into media deals and narrative control. The other leaned into structure and tradition. And in a world obsessed with authenticity, people are constantly asking the same question: who looks more real? Right now, many feel the answer is William. Not because he's louder, not because he's dramatic.
They're going to make a fortune because if you remember Howard Stern, the shock jock in the States, there's a famous scene in his movie and in his book Private Parts where they do the original research into him on WNBC, and they say what the research shows is that half of his listeners hate him, and management said all the more reason to get him off, and they said no, they're the ones who listen most. And that's what'll happen with this. People who loathe Harry and...
But because he's steady, in the chaos of headlines, steady wins. What makes this whole situation even more intense is how public trust has slowly shifted over time. In the beginning, when Harry and Meghan first stepped back, there was a wave of sympathy. People understood wanting space. They understood wanting to protect your mental health. They understood wanting to raise a family away from constant scrutiny. That part made sense. But as the months turned into years, the message started to blur. If the goal was peace, why stay in the spotlight? If the goal was privacy, why keep signing massive media deals? That's the question critics keep asking. And it's not necessarily about resentment, it's about consistency. When words and actions don't line up, people notice. And once doubt creeps in, it's hard to erase. The Oprah interview was the first major turning point. It was dramatic. It was emotional. It was global. That moment reframed everything. Instead of quietly stepping away, the story exploded into an international debate. Then came the podcast announcements, then the Netflix series, then Harry's memoir. Each release reopened the same royal chapter they claimed they wanted to close. To supporters, it was healing and transparency. To critics, it looked like monetizing personal conflict. And that's where the tension really lives. Because regular families deal with disagreements too. They deal with miscommunication. They deal with distance and emotional strain. But most people don't have production teams, streaming contracts, and global press tours attached to their pain. When your private struggle becomes premium content, the public naturally starts questioning the motive. Harry often speaks about breaking cycles and finding freedom.
Fireworks? What? Let's take a look.
Yeah!
Oh, they want so much privacy.
Down with the monarchy! We deserve our privacy!
But critics argue that true freedom doesn't require constant explanation. It doesn't require revisiting the same grievances repeatedly. At some point, audiences want growth. They want forward movement. They want to see what's being built instead of what's being broken. Meanwhile, Meghan's public image remains sharply divided. Some view her as strong and misunderstood. Others see her as calculated and media-savvy to the core. The idea that she carefully curates every narrative angle isn't new. It's been part of the discourse for years. And when Jimmy Carr amplified that perception through comedy, it resonated because the groundwork was already there. Another layer to this is legacy. The royal family operates on long timelines, decades, generations. Stability matters more than short-term wins. William's strategy aligns with that structure. Harry's path feels more immediate, more media-centered, more reactive. That doesn't automatically make one right and the other wrong, but it does create a stark contrast in how each brother is perceived. There's also the question of accountability. Critics say Harry and Meghan rarely admit fault. When backlash comes, it's often framed as misunderstanding or media distortion. That approach can work once or twice. But over time, people expect self-reflection. They expect acknowledgement of missteps. Without it, frustration grows. At the same time, it's important to recognize the complexity. Leaving an institution as historic and rigid as the monarchy isn't simple. It's emotional, it's layered, it's deeply personal. Harry's experience inside that system was unique. His perspective will always carry weight because he lived it. The problem isn't that he tells his story. The problem, according to critics, is how often the story circles back to the same themes without visible resolution. And then there's public fatigue.
Meghan Markle, who married this ginger retard and took him out of his racist family so that they could live in Beverly Hills or wherever the they live. Well, what's brilliant about what she's doing is she knows people want to spend money, and spending money makes them feel like they're getting something that's better, even though it might.
In today's fast-moving media world, audiences move on quickly. They don't stay locked into one narrative forever. If the same storyline keeps repeating, attention shifts from empathy to exhaustion. That's the risk of turning personal history into long-running content. William, on the other hand, benefits from predictability. His life isn't packaged as a dramatic saga. It's structured around service, appearances, and long-term projects. That steadiness builds quiet credibility. It doesn't trend as explosively, but it doesn't spark backlash cycles either. The contrast between the brothers has almost become symbolic. One represents tradition and continuity. The other represents disruption and reinvention. That dynamic keeps the public conversation alive because it taps into bigger themes: duty versus independence, stability versus reinvention, silence versus storytelling. Jimmy Carr's comedy simply reflected what many already feel. It wasn't just about punchlines. It was about perception. When the audience laughs, it's often because there's a shared understanding underneath the joke. And right now, that shared understanding is this: the public is trying to figure out what's authentic and what's strategic. Harry and Meghan are still powerful figures. They still command attention. They still generate headlines. But attention alone doesn't equal admiration. The more visible you are, the more people analyze every move, every interview, every statement, every deal. And that scrutiny isn't going away. Because at its core, this story isn't just about royalty. It's about branding. It's about narrative control. It's about how modern fame intersects with old institutions. It's about whether stepping away from tradition automatically makes you free or just differently managed. The conversation continues because the contrast continues.
Yeah, she's American.
That is a great way to describe Wallace Simpson. She's the original Meghan Markle.
That day in Windsor, it was magical when Harry and Meghan got married, and I remember thinking that the world had finally shifted, that we were moving forward. But now we know that the fairy tale was actually the beginning of a very long and painful nightmare.
What can Harry do?
He doesn't get security anymore. He has to pay for security. He has to buy his house. He has to mind the kids.
Do you know what Harry did for a while? Do you know what William used to do? William used to fly Coast Guard helicopters. Put on a little helmet, put on goggles. Nobody knew who he was, flew a helicopter. There's nothing stopping Harry getting a job flying helicopters in LA. He could fly a traffic report helicopter every morning.
No, go away. I'm so silly. I'm so silly.
You're getting a job like the rest of us.
Because the paparazzi are never going to leave them alone. They're
Because
never
they keep going up to the paparazzi and saying, hello, leave me alone.
One path is loud and media-driven. The other is quiet and structured. One invites debate, the other avoids it. And as long as that divide exists, the spotlight isn't dimming anytime soon. At this point, a lot of people are asking the same question. What would happen if Harry and Meghan actually stepped back and lived the quiet life they once said they wanted? They spoke about privacy. They moved across the world for it. They said they needed space. But then came the documentaries, the podcasts, the interviews. That's where critics start scratching their heads. If the mission was peace, why stay so visible? It's not that people are against them speaking. It's the contradiction that fuels the frustration. You can't say you're overwhelmed by attention and then keep launching projects that guarantee more of it. That's the disconnect. And when viewers notice that gap, the sympathy starts fading. The narrative shifts from they needed freedom to they're managing the spotlight on their own terms. Some feel like they're not running from attention at all. They're scheduling it. Every new appearance reignites the same debate. Every project reopens the same chapter. And when the public reacts, they seem surprised that people are still watching closely. But when you keep the cameras rolling, people are going to tune in. That's just reality.
You're thinking, did Netflix cancel 6 series or only 5? You gotta ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do ya? Punk?
Yeah, so lucky, very grateful. I'm batting well above my average. Please stop pointing the gun at me.
He's not the Messiah! He's a very naughty boy!
You're so funny, Megs.
What do you mean I'm funny? I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown? I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Oh, you nearly had me there, Megs. Great bants.
No, I'm serious, H. How am I funny?
Sir, your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Del Taco.
The biggest issue for critics isn't even the media deals. It's the tone. The constant framing as victims while sitting in luxury creates a perception problem. Regular families face drama too. Regular people deal with stress and criticism too. They just don't have global streaming platforms to tell their side. That contrast is what makes some viewers roll their eyes. Jimmy Carr tapped into that frustration with sharp humor. Whether you agree with his delivery or not, the reason it hit so hard is because many people already felt that way. Comedy works best when it reflects a shared thought. And right now, a lot of viewers feel like the privacy narrative doesn't line up with the public strategy. This story clearly isn't cooling off anytime soon. Every time it feels like it's settling down, another headline drops and the debate fires back up. The divide between supporters and critics stays strong. And as long as Harry and Meghan continue sharing their version of events, the commentary isn't going anywhere. If you've got thoughts on all of this, drop a comment below and let your voice be heard. Hit like if you think Jimmy Carr said what a lot of people have been thinking, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Share this with someone who's been following the drama too, and I'll see you on the next one.